It is finally time to introduce you guys to 2025's list of self-destructing books. And fingers crossed that this year's stack is as successful as 2024's was. So if you guys don't know what self-destructing books are, this is a video that I make every single year where I pick 10 books from my home library and set them aside to potentially be unhauled. So I am somebody who really struggles with decision making. I am also somebody who likes to give everything a chance. I don't like to stay in my comfort zone a lot of the time, and I like to explore new things, new genres, types of books that I maybe don't think I'm going to like, but there's always a chance I could make a whole video about books that I thought I was going to dislike that I ended up really enjoying. And for that reason, even when I think that a book is not for me, I don't like to let go of it without trying it, especially because I do have quite a few books in my library that I have received because I have a YouTube channel. So things like rep boxes from subscription box companies, which I do have quite a few out in this video, that I wouldn't have necessarily have gone out and purchased for myself, but they are something that has entered my library and I don't want to leave without giving them a try. So I created the self-destructing books challenge where I would pick 10 books that fit into this category and we set them aside for 12 months. And if I have not at least tried them within that 12-month period, then I have to unhaul all of them unread. Up until last year, I normally do not make a lot of progress going through the stack. However, because I chose to theme a couple of episodes of Shelve It or Scrap It, which I will link the playlist in the description if you haven't checked it out, around my self-destructing book list for 2024, that is the first year that I've actually managed to finish my entire list and have at least sampled all of the 10 books that I set aside. And this year, I'm hoping that we can do the same because my theme for 2025 is books that are from the stacks. I decided that we were going to kill two birds with one stone this year, and instead of having all of these different piles of books that I had for like different challenges that I wanted to work my way through, we're just doubling up and I've picked my 10 self-destructing books straight from the stacks with the hope that I can then make progress on them throughout the year as I progress through Shelve It or Scrap It. But in terms of synopses, the majority of these I don't know too much about, but hopefully as I get to sampling them and reading them throughout 2025 into 2026, I will be able to tell you a little bit more about them then. But the first one we have is the only paperback in the stack, and that is Wicked Beginnings by L.A. Cotton. This one is a contemporary romance that I picked up on the free table from Rare in, I think it was the 2022 event. And all I really know about this one is that it is about a girl in high school. I think it's a young adult actually, because she's only, I think, 17, but she moves into her uncle's pool house and she meets a boy who I'm assuming lives in that area where her uncle lives, that she had a summer fling with the summer before, and this obviously brings up old feelings. The reason why this one is in the stack is because I picked it up from the free table because it was free. I don't do that so much anymore. I limit myself pretty much to one book every time I go to Rare from the free table. This was the first time that I went. My romance collection was smaller. I was newer to contemporary romance and I wanted to try a whole bunch of new things, but this is probably one that I wouldn't have picked up if I'd have actually paid for it. The next one is City of Dusk by Tara Sim. This one is just unappealing to me. Like, I never ever want to pick it up. I think it was the second book that was featured in the adult Fairy Loot subscription, so it is a couple of years old now. I heard pretty mid things about it from the people who read it like shortly after release. Nothing terrible, just nothing overwhelmingly enthusiastic either. And so it's just a book that I have that I never really reached for. I have had a book by Tara Sim before that I received in an owl crate. It was a YA fantasy many years ago, and I'm pretty sure that that was also a self-destructing book because once again I just had no desire to really read it. And as far as the plot of this one, I think it surrounds gods, and that is something that I enjoy. There is nothing about this, the actual synopsis of this book, that makes me think I'm actually going to dislike it. I just never want to reach for it. This is one of the two more recent books that are in the stack, and it is The Phoenix Keeper by S.A. McLean. This one is an Illumicrate pick from July 2024, so it's longer ago than I thought it was actually. It's crazy how time flies. But speaking of flying, The Phoenix Keeper is about a phoenix keeper who works at a zoo. Now, I do love animals and the thought of a book set at a zoo does appeal to me, but I've heard very mediocre things about this one as well. It's been described as a cozy fantasy. I am aware that cozy fantasy is a buzzword right now, so it is something that is being slapped on the cover of a bunch of books where it doesn't necessarily fit. So I don't know if it is truly a cozy fantasy, but I have heard that pretty much it's just somebody who works at a fantastical zoo. Cozy fantasy is something that I can enjoy. It's not something that I ever reach for. Like if I see cozy fantasy on something, it's unlikely that I'm actually going to want to pick it up. And combined with the mediocre reviews, this is just something that I'm not particularly excited about. Now, I know that I did say that every book that is in this stack has a reason. The only thing I can say about this is that it is a feeling, and that is The Drowned Woods by Emily Lloyd Jones. I have had multiple books by Emily Lloyd Jones. I think once again, an Emily Lloyd Jones book was a self-destructing book. And like with Tara Sim, I just find Emily Lloyd Jones books unappealing, and I actually always hear very good things about them. So I don't know what it is, but there's just something about them that it just doesn't excite me. This is once again set in Wales or heavily inspired by Wales, as all of the Emily Lloyd Jones books I have owned are. I think that is like her niche in fantasy. And the main character is a water diviner. This one particularly, like things that surround water magic or are set in the sea, I've never really had a good experience with in the past. The only like water-based series I can think I've actually really enjoyed is The Live Ship Traders by Robin Hobb. But aside from that, I just feel like it's not something that's particularly appealing to me, but I just have like an aversion to Emily Lloyd Jones books. And I do admit that it is completely irrational. There is absolutely no reason for it. It's just a feeling. And that is why this one has ended up on this, mainly to make me pick it up. I might enjoy it. I'm just so reluctant to give it a try that I feel like I need to give myself an extra push. Something else that I feel like I don't really gel with is specifically Illumicrate sci-fi picks. So the next one is The Principle of Moments by Esme Jakimi Pearson. I don't know why I don't tend to love Illumicrate sci-fi picks. I love a bunch of sci-fi. I just made a huge recommendations video with my 50 favorite books that I've read because of BookTube, and so many of them, like 20% of them, were sci-fi, but I haven't read enough sci-fi to know what I enjoy. I just know that I don't tend to enjoy Illumicrate sci-fi picks, and this one contains time travel. I also think that it is quite political. The back of it says that it is a grand space opera, and I have enjoyed space opera in the past, though I don't think it's my favorite subgenre of science fiction. So this is one that I very much could enjoy. I mean, all of these are. I need to give them a try to figure out if I do actually enjoy them, and that is why they're on self-destructing books as opposed to just being unhauled, because I do feel like there is potential for me to enjoy all of these. I just struggle to ever want to choose them over a bunch of other books that I own. So this is one where like the synopsis of it seems fine, like it doesn't seem like something I would dislike. It's just also not appealing to me, and it's never one that I'm going to gravitate towards. This one is another Illumicrate sci-fi, but the actual reason why I've included it in this is because I have read something from this author in the past and I have not enjoyed it. So this is a second chance author for me, and it is also, I think, the most recent book in this stack from October 2024, and that is Until We Shatter by Kate Dillon. So I did a series on my channel that is the Goldsboro Science Fiction and Fantasy Fellowship worth my money? And it was where I read 1 year of the GSFF book picks and decided whether it was a subscription that I enjoyed, like whether I enjoyed the subscription enough to continue paying for it every month. And one of the books that I DNF for that challenge was, is it Mindwalker by Kate Dillon. And there was nothing wrong with it. I just wasn't particularly invested in it. It felt very kind of fast paced. It wasn't YA, I don't think, but it seemed to focus on themes that are quite common within YA. And I feel like I like my sci-fi to be a little bit more complex and a little bit more intense. I really like sci-fi horror, I know that for sure. And it just wasn't delivering any of the things that I love in sci-fi for me. So for this reason, this is not one that is particularly high on my radar or one that I'm itching to pick up. And I think that this one contains time travel. Absolutely not about time travel. It is about somebody who is searching for powerful relics and stealing them from a church. Is it even sci-fi? Is it fantasy? I can't tell you. but we'll find out if I pick this one up. I pre-ordered this one and I admit that that was a mistake. It is A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. So Samantha Shannon, actually one of my favorite authors because I love the Bone Season series. However, I very much do not like Priory of the Orange Tree. I gave it 4 stars at the time that I read it. It was very early into me being on BookTube. I read it for a book club and I thought that I was wrong. Like I was like, okay, this is a 4-star book. I just don't like it. I now disagree and I now rate books differently and I go with my gut instead of going, oh, this book deserves 4 stars, but for me it's a 2. Priory of the Orange Tree was a 2-star read for me. Looking back on it now, while there are things that I'm sure that I did enjoy about it, really like Samantha Shannon's writing style, so probably that was something I enjoyed. Overall, I only have negative things to say about Priory of the Orange Tree, but because I love Samantha Shannon in terms of the Bone Season, I thought, okay, let's try another book set in this world. The problem is, it's just so hard for me to want to try a book that is set in the same world as something I disliked when it's this thick. And I've also heard that it reads like a textbook. So every book in this world is a standalone, and that is one of the reasons why I didn't like Priory of the Orange Tree. I feel like it was way too ambitious to be contained into one book, and then for that reason it just fell really flat for me. But this one is set in a different time period. I'm assuming because it reads a little bit like a textbook that it's set further back in time. I'm interested in it because I'm sure I will at least somewhat like it because I like Samantha Shannon, but I have such negative feelings towards Priory of the Orange Tree that I actually really do not want to read this book. And I actually unhauled Priory of the Orange Tree, which was really sad for me because I love the covers of this series. The next one is one that I actually think that I would enjoy this book, if not for the author, because I've disliked something by this author before, and that is Song of Silver Flame Like Night by Emily Wen Zhao. So I read Blood Heir, and I think it's one of the most pointless books that I have ever read. It's an Anastasia retelling, but nothing was achieved in the first book. Like, it was so boring to me. And I feel like by the end of the book, the characters were in exactly the same position as they were right at the beginning. So absolutely nothing progressed story-wise there. So while this does sound like something I could enjoy, the fact that it is by Emily Wen Zhao is really putting me off, especially because I love Anastasia and the synopsis of Blood Heir sounded really good, but I ended up intensely disliking it. It's not one of the worst books I've ever read, but it is like, it was one of my worst books of whatever year I read it in. Oh, okay, so this is interesting because I am going to China in April and I'm going on Gavin from Gavin Reads It All's Trover trip to China, and his prompt, we're not doing a book club or like a book where we all read the same book this time, but he has prompted us to read a book set in China or inspired by China or by a Chinese author. And the first thing on the letter from the author here says, I grew up in Beijing with stories of legendary heroes and immortal gods and demons. So I think that this one is heavily inspired by Chinese legend. In terms of the synopsis, it features magic. It is set in a land that has been colonized, and it seems like a pretty standard fantasy story in that regard. So yeah, there's nothing that I don't like about this necessarily in the synopsis. I just didn't like the last book I read from Emily Wen Zhao. This is real simple why it's on this list. It is Voyage of the Damned by Frances White, and somebody actually commented recently, I think on, was it my last episode of Shelve It or Scrap It, saying that I might as well just scrap this straight off because they don't think a silly goofy murder mystery is my thing. And I knew that this was a murder mystery. That is the main reason why I don't really want to read it and why it is featured as a self-destructing book. But I also didn't know that it was silly goofy, and that's put me off even more because I don't like silly goofy things. If something is described as fun, I absolutely do not want to read it. So this one is set on a ship. It is a 12-day voyage to a sacred goddess's mountain. On the ship are 12 heirs to the 12 provinces of the land, and one of the heirs is murdered, but it says later on as the bodies pile higher, so I'm assuming one by one they're being murdered and the main character has to get to the bottom of it. Very much given And Then There Were None vibes by Agatha Christie, which is really weird actually because I was just talking about that. I think it was in my March TBR, not in this video. But yeah, also similar, like everyone's dying, we need to figure out who is responsible before we also die, which is not something I like. Murder mysteries just really not for me. I just don't find them very compelling. And then the final self-destructing book for 2025 is one that I've added to the stacks recently to push me to read it essentially, and it's Lady Hotspur by Tessa Gratton. This one is a companion novel to The Queens of Innis Lear, which is a King Lear retelling, and this one is a retelling of, is it like Richard IV or something? It's another Shakespearean retelling anyway, anyway. And The Queens of Innisleia is a book that I went into with the wrong expectations. I loved Tessa Gratton's lyrical writing style and the atmosphere of that book was amazing, but I was expecting it to become more action-packed than it ever did. Like, there is a lot of tension in that book and a lot of betrayal because it is obviously a retelling of Shakespeare, but I always expected it, because it's a fantasy book, to build up to some big conflict that never happened. And so I ended up giving it 3 stars because it didn't meet my expectations, because I went into it with the wrong ones. So I lowered my expectations for Lady Hotspur, but just knowing how long it took me to read The Queens of Innisleia and how slow it was has really put me off picking up Lady Hotspur, because I do think, a part of me thinks, if I reread Queens of Innisleia with the right expectations, I would enjoy it a little bit more. But who has the time? Who has the time to reread a 3-star book to see if you may enjoy it more? And so instead, I want to try the companion novel, Lady Hotspur, and if I go into it with lower expectations, or slower expectations, I guess, and end up really liking this one, then there is a big chance, obviously, that if I did reread Queens of Innisleia, I'd enjoy it more, and I would be more willing to do it if I enjoyed Lady Hotspur. So this is one that has sat on my shelf for years, because getting the motivation to try a book that there's a big chance that I'll find really slow and won't live up to my expectations is difficult. So it's now a self-destructing book. This is probably one of the heaviest stacks of self-destructing books I've ever had, but here are my 10 ow, that, it didn't go in my eye, but it went right in the corner. Ow. These are my 10 self-destructing books for 2025. Down in the comments, let me know which one of these you think I'm going to enjoy the most, because I feel like there's definitely going to be one that I'm like, no, I'm glad that I've read this. I loved it against all my expectations. But then also let me know which one you think I'm going to like the least, or just DNF very early on. But if you would like to let me know that you were here, but you don't feel like you have anything to say, leave me a fish emoji for Voyage of the Damned. But aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, my Instagram, and my Patreon if you'd like to join me on any of those. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.